Hello, Edward. Thank you for taking the time to join me today.
No
I
problem.
appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I'm getting up early. So, I'm excited to introduce you to our clients and some new people over here on the East Coast. I feel like FOSILART and Ziabird were definitely destined to be together and to connect in this way through this gorgeous jewelry after having seen your work over the years.
Yeah, I appreciate our connection's been really, really good. It's always nice to meet somebody that kind of understands what I'm doing and appreciates it and helps me facilitate uh, carrying on with the process. Because we need the money to keep paying everybody and buying all the stuff. So I really appreciate the time we spent together.
Yeah, just keep it all churning.
Yeah.
So people are curious to know, how did you start working with this material? It seems sort of unusual and hard to come by.
Yeah. Well, originally, when I was a young man, I learned how to be a custom shoemaker. And as part of that process, the guy that taught me how to make shoes had a button business. They were moccasins and they had buttons on them that were made out of coins. And so he didn't have enough time to do that, and he ended up giving me the coin business, and I started making buttons out of coins, which eventually led to making them out of antler and making them out of shell and making them out of water buffalo horn. And eventually I heard about this fossil ivory, and I remember the day I called the guy. I called him up and I told him that I was looking for, about a button sized diameter in a piece of ivory. And I'll never forget the sound over the phone. I could hear him clinking all these, you could hear him like going through all this ivory and clinking all these pieces together. And he sent me a piece. And when he sent it to me, I didn't know what it was at the time. I'd never seen this stuff before, but it was this beautiful round piece of ivory, kind of looked like that. It was perfect for just cutting into buttons.
Huh?
Then I realized it was an artifact that he had just cut in half on the bandsaw, and it was perfect round pieces. And so I started making buttons. These are the shoes that I was making. So they were custom
Oh,
made fit shoes. So the buttons on those are made out of fossil ivory.
oh,
One of
nice.
my favorite pictures of all time is my two sons and their little shoes. So that's how I got started with the ivory. And I made things myself. I made beads and I made other things out of it too. And then eventually, when I went to Indonesia, I went there originally. I was still a shoemaker when I went there, but I still had I had a little bag of ivory, and then we discovered these carvers, and that then became a whole industry in Bali over the years.
Of people who carved the ivory.
Yeah, and foreigners like me, pirates and hippies that had gone to Indonesia, and eventually there were about 15 or 20 of us that were running major carving businesses over there, mostly carving wildlife. But it was a whole new thing. I mean, because we were using flex shaft tools and making artwork that was just amazing stuff.
Yeah. So people sometimes are confused about ivory, like walrus, fossil, ivory. Can you help me understand a little bit? Because ivory's, we're told not to endorse that, but this seems like something different.
So yeah, there are different. What ivory is? Ivory is it's a tooth that grows throughout
Oh,
the animal's life. Like an elephant uh, has ivory. Walruses have ivory. They say hippos have ivory, but it's not really ivory. The only animals that really had ivory were elephants, mammoths, and walrus. And it's a tooth that grows all the time, so it has no enamel on it. And
oh,
it was used like elephants. Elephants use their tusks. They dig them into the ground and then push a tree over. They eat trees. Walruses
really?
use their tusks to get up on the ice.
Oh,
So these things go through wear and tear, and that's why they grow the entire life of the animal. Like mammoths, their tusks end up curving because they had so much food eventually as the planet warmed that they were just eating everything in sight. They didn't really need to use their tusks that much, and that's why they started to curl like that. The
Interesting.
thing with the ivory that I use, the walrus ivory, is that it was the Eskimos. It was one of their materials. They lived above the Arctic Circle. There's not, there's no trees up there. They're only wood. Like if they were going to make a harpoon or something, they had to find a piece of driftwood. They didn't. I don't know that they even burned that much firewood. They used mostly like whale oil and seal oil and walrus oil, and then they had some stone, but they had the tusks of the walruses, and they made all their tools. Like this piece I just showed earlier. This is a this was an ice adze. It had a it had a blade, a stone blade that went right there on it, and then
Wow.
a handle that came down here, and it was lashed onto that handle. So
Yeah.
they made they made tools. There's another one.
Oh
That's a
yeah.
thin piece, and their all their clothing was seal skin. So when they would come in from being outside, it had ice and snow all over it. And this was a snow knife, and they'd take all
I
the ice off their clothes before they went inside. This is
think
a
we have a piece of jewelry here that might reflect some of that too.
yeah.
I think there's one.
The uh, the material was yeah. Now that's a beautiful piece. That was probably a snow knife. So the thing was that they made tools out of this stuff, and a lot of the tools had one-time use. Sled runners and things like that that they only used one time and then they tossed it. So over time, there's been people in St. Lawrence Island, which is where this material comes from. It's in the Bering Sea between Alaska and Russia. Over time, and it's accumulated. There's been people there for 25,000 years.
Wow.
So the material got buried. It eventually mineralized. There's a piece that's heavily mineralized,
Oh yeah. Darkened up.
and they say fossil ivory, but it's not really a fossil. Is really a stone. This is not a stone. It's still ivory, but it's been mineralized. So the material itself, it's all excavated. I mean, it got that animal got eaten, 2,000 years ago, and good on you if you can catch a walrus in the wild. You should be able to eat them. So all the material is excavated. Even mammoths have been extinct for 10,000 years. Also, an excavated material that comes out from gold prospecting.
Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, that's really interesting history that uh, I feel like everybody in the United States and the world can connect to, wanting to be part of something so natural and so real and with so much history to it. I think that's what speaks to us about your collection is how real it is,
Yeah. It
you
also
know?
provides it provides income for the natives in St. Lawrence Island. So it's heavy repurposing.
Heavy repurposing. You know, we've got some pieces for the collection for the show for May 7th and 8th at Ziabird that I think are just spectacular. I mean, you can see the coloration here and some of the interest.
That's a beautiful.
And I mean, this one right here looks like it has an incredible history to it.
Yeah, that bottom piece, you can see there's engraving in that, those lines. So that
Yeah.
piece is probably from the 1200s. That's a harpoon. Here's an actual complete harpoon with the stone blade in it.
Oh, yeah. And how do you select the piece that goes with it when you're designing?
Well, it's almost like a blind draw. Like I don't when I'm designing something, I don't like think of something and then either make materials to do it. What I do is I prepare all the materials beforehand, clean them up, whether I'm milling a piece of ivory or I'm just using it as an artifact. And then I just kind of reach into a bag blind and take out a piece, put it down, and I go, okay, what's that need? Well, maybe it's cool just the way it is. And I'll use it just like that. Or I'll say, oh, that needs a stone, or maybe that needs another piece of ivory going across it. Um, So it's very organic. I mean, if I look at too many pieces, I can't think. If I
Ah,
look at one piece, the design, it happens. It's automatic because basically, if you look at the jewelry, it's all on an axis. It has to hang, it has to sit there, it has to hang nicely. So it's got to have a bail on it, it has to have a frame around it. So a lot of the just initial structure and balance of putting the piece together, that creates a lot of design right there. So
mm,
it's very in the moment. I mean, I have ideas that come to me, but most of the ideas come right out of the material.
wow. I love that because that seems so, when you see the finished product, you can really tell that that's what's happening.
You can see there's that axis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's two pieces. That's a harpoon on the bottom, probably for seal hunting. And that top piece, it was probably some kind of a hole punch that broke off. You can see that one's got a kind of a sharp point that broke off there, and a piece of turquoise in between.
I love that. And this one here is also really got a really interesting darkness to it.
Yeah, that was some kind of a gripping handle for something. I'm not really sure, but you can
You
see it.
can,
They're definitely using it in that way. Could have been a knife handle, and their traditional knife handles weren't like what we think of as a steel knife. They were using stone blades, and the blades themselves were usually quite short. They didn't have knives until the Chinese were the first to show up and give them some steel.
oh, so the knives were short and efficient, sharp.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got a piece here too that has a little needle on it. And I thought it was interesting to hear the story about how, um, a lot of these pieces are about the lifestyle of living, just their life as fishermen and hunters. But there was a little room for romance too,
Yeah,
in up there. Can you tell me about those
yeah.
needles?
And there, when boy met girl, what he would do is he would get a piece of bone, something about this big around and about this long, and would make a little box out of it. He'd close the bottom and the top of it, and then they etched lines into it. And then he made a collection of little sewing needles out of ivory, and that was kind of like the going steady ring. And he gave that to the girl, and that meant, hey, I'm on you.
I love that. And I just love that story that there's that kind of little history to it. We've got some really interesting pieces that we're going to have at the show too, in your earring collection with stones. I mean, just every design is different, each and every one. I'm just digging how you can see some of the darkness here.
And those are like those earrings, most of those earrings, that top piece that's the walrus ivory, that's just a cross cut out of a tool like this. So all we did is
Yeah.
just cut it. It wasn't, the tool itself wasn't worth enough to keep intact because there are a lot of kind of nondescript pieces that, like I said, a lot of stuff was single use. We just take that and we just cut it like that. And then with the earrings, once we cut that and you open it, you have a mirror image. So we end up, every pair is going to be different, but
Yeah.
each pair is a mirror image of itself. Like
Oh, I see.
when they make guitars and stuff like that, that's how they cut the wood.
Okay. I love these too. This feels like something that is really going to speak to our clients. It's a long beaded necklace that you and Dee did, that it has that earring vibe, but it's on a necklace.
Yeah, those are again, those are made out of those same pieces. We'll get pieces got really nice color, or maybe the size isn't quite right for earrings, and then we'll make those necklaces.
Yeah, the color combinations. In fact, this one I just discovered, I think, is spectacular. The way it's been put together with the blues and the turquoises.
See, those
And
those are from ice testers. Those are just cut pieces, like something like this.
yeah,
We just cut it. I mean, we didn't cut this one.
no, that's a good one. I can see too that you've signed and numbered everything, which I think gives it real value for
Yeah.
people to understand it's an artwork. It's a piece of art you're wearing.
I actually have behind me here in the bookcase. Um, I've already done almost 12,000 drawings.
Wow. Oh
So
yeah.
piece like when I'm doing my designing, I'll just lay the piece down on the book and start drawing. This is kind of a historic. That's my 10,000th pendant,
10,000.
and here's the piece.
Oh wow.
So
That's
that's
number 10,000.
number 10,000.
I
So
love that this collection that we have from you has some very low numbers in it too, from some, really early on stages
yeah,
to up into the 9,000s.
when I got to 10,000, I went back to one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I figured, that's good. 10,000 is good. Let's just start over.
Well, how do you know if it's 1 1 or what 1.2?
All those one ones and the 1 1 is long gone.
Oh, that's good to know. Oh, well, this collection is just amazing. I mean, I feel like a lot of it does have fossil, but occasionally we have some that are just gemstones.
Yeah, that's
And
phrase.
yeah, what inspires you about gemstones? Here's
I've
another one.
always liked turquoise. I've always loved turquoise, and when I first started the jewelry, I was just using ivories and horn and stuff, and then I bought the first stones, and then everything just went boom, and then there I am at the Tucson Gem Show. Uh, we only do the Tucson Gem Show, and then we go to Alaska once a year just to sell where the cruise ships go. But then there I was turned loose in Tucson with all this money, just gorge on turquoise. And I've always loved turquoise. It's just such a magic, beautiful stone. I use some chrysoprase and lapis and jasper, but yeah, my main stone is turquoise. Plus, there's a lot of beads available out of turquoise.
Yeah,
It just goes with it, and I've got a lot of sort of American Indian spirit in my soul, and
totally.
that's really that stone. And I've lived in the Southwest and spent a lot of time there, and it just resonates with me.
Yeah, I can see that. It really works well back to the fossil as well. And then I noticed that some fossil is actually carved into beads too. So some of these necklaces have um, fossil beads as well.
So we use everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like on one with big beads, we've actually taken ivory and cut it up to make beads expressly for beads. But a lot of those smaller beads are just all the cutting pieces and stuff that's left over. We use every single piece.
And is that done in Bali?
Yeah, all the work's done in Bali. I do a lot of the cutting here in the United States, just so I got it. I'll just do a rough, like on a pendant or something like that. I'll do the rough cut and then just draw what I want. Do I want a hole cut in it, or do I want it a specific shape? Or sometimes we do stuff that it'll look like a faceted stone. And then I've got a guy and his wife who make all the beads and do all the finishing. They finish all the earrings, and then we have 8 people who do silver work over there.
Oh wow, that's cool. So
Yes.
what was it like living in Indonesia?
Well, it was the 1980s, and it just seemed like a good time to leave America. I had a bunch of friends who were artists and craftsmen. A couple guys went out and kind of looked at the trail and came back and said, "Oh man, this Bali, this is a cool place." So
Yeah.
a dozen of us packed up and went on an extended trip through Southeast Asia and wound up in Indonesia and said, "Yeah, this is it." Came back, got rid of what stuff. Most of us were, living in rolling homes or teepees or old farmhouses and stuff. We didn't really have real estate or anything. We were just hippies. And we'd all, packed up and took our $1,500 and the family and moved to Bali. And over it didn't take very long for us to realize there were all these people who made art who didn't consider themselves artists at all. They just made stuff. So we came in with our ideas, and they were really happy to work. And it created a situation where, for somebody like me, my art could really advance quickly, because before I was making everything myself. I'd done leather clothing, shoes, beadwork. I made mountain man outfits. I did a lot of different things. And there, the I'd made shoes for a while. I made clothing for a while with people, and I started doing a small amount of carving out of the fossil walrus ivory, and then eventually I had like 35 guys carving ivory. That went
Wow.
on for about 15 years, and then I got this inspiration to make the jewelry, and that's what changed everything. The jewelry, it like when with carving, I was carving animals and using a lot of pictures and I was doing some drawing, but when I started doing the jewelry, that was really coming out of me. And then having these 10 people, that just that sped up the process, so that the evolution of what I was doing didn't take that much time at all. So it
Yeah,
really allowed me to uh, go along. I mean, I've done 12,000 drawings, and I made
yeah.
pieces that translated into, I don't know, we could have made, make about, I don't know, might have made 40,000 pieces over all the time I've been doing this, counting earrings and everything. Like the one of a kind pendants, not that many. But
Yeah.
we've done some production work early on where we did multiple pieces.
All right. And the level of craftsmanship in Bali seems to be very high. Like you said, it's just part of their life.
Well, they're very open to doing what you would like them to do. They're not like here when you work with an artist, and I did a lot of contract work for people too when I was in Bali. So I would meet an artist, they would want me to make their stuff. I'd say, okay, we'd make something, and then they go, but we could do this, and they'd want to keep remaking it and remaking it. I go, man, don't make another one. I mean, don't remake it. Let's make another one. So the Balinese, they can finish a piece and bring it to you, and you could just like, it's all done, it's polished, and you can just put a little mark on there with a felt pen and say, hey, would you fix that right there? And they just go, yeah, no problem. It- They're they're very, very willing, and they're very community oriented, um, and they're humble people. I mean, it's a beautiful experience to work with these guys. I'm not kidding. They're some of my best friends in the world.
Well, I'm really looking forward to connecting with you and Dee in Bali sometime this year. We're hoping that as things open up, I'll be able to connect with y'all there and see what your life was like there, meet some of your people, and just experience the place itself.
Yeah, it's still a beautiful place. I mean, it's survived the onslaught of civilization for centuries.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see it. And I also can't wait to show this amazing collection to all of our fans, your fans, May 7th and 8th at Ziabird. And it will be online to shop on both of those days.
Yeah.
So these pieces are one of a kind. When they're done, they're gone. And they are amazing. Trust me when I tell you, this is the real deal. So thank you, Edward, for taking the time to talk to me today. And I know that I will be seeing you again really soon.
Hey, thanks, Lynn.
All right.